Today I'm taking a runner's look at the Jabra Elite 75T versus the Jabra Elite 65T. .15 miles, 10 minutes, 40 seconds per mile today, at 142 beats per minute on average. Spending 2 hours and 20 minutes on the treadmill today, getting in a nice sweat test on the Jabra Elite 75T and having an absolutely great time running in these earbuds. These are fantastic. But before I get into any of my detailed thoughts on the Jabra Elite 75T, let's go over some disclosures. This is a pair of earbuds that I bought with my own money. Same thing with the Jabra Elite 65T. Those are also a pair of earbuds I bought with my own money, and no one sent them to me. No one's paying me to use the earbuds or to make this video, and no one's gonna get a chance to preview any of this footage before you guys get a chance to see the video on YouTube. Now with that disclosure out of the way, let's talk about the Jabra Elite 75T and the 65T. The Jabra Elite 65T has been one of my absolute favorite earbuds I've ever run in. They've been fantastic sound. They've been fantastic for running, and also they have the pass-through feature where it uses the microphones on the earbuds to push the audio that's around you into your earbuds so you can mix that in with your music, giving you a better sense of the world that's around you even though you've got earbuds in. In terms of the sound quality, the Jabra Elite 75T sound quality is absolutely fantastic. Now, fortunately, I was able to find the 65T pair of earbuds. It's a pair of earbuds that I thought I had lost, but it turns out it was just buried deep inside a pocket in my travel bag. When I traveled, or I didn't travel, but when I stayed downtown for the Chicago Marathon, this is a pair of earbuds that I had brought with me. I put them in the bag, and I just couldn't find them for whatever reason after the marathon, and so I thought I had lost the earbuds somewhere. Maybe I left them at the hotel, but I have the same travel bag here at my in-laws house. As I was rummaging through it, I found that these were in here, and they still had battery life left even though the marathon was weeks ago, so that was impressive. With the 75T, the same impressiveness is here. The case is smaller, the earbuds are smaller. Everything about this package seems to be a little bit more concentrated and in a very good way. You can do the same thing in terms of getting the pass-through audio in. You can even set up different listening profiles so that sometimes pass-through audio is in, like there's a commute setting, and sometimes their pass-through audio is turned off. Like for example, if you're studying or trying to concentrate, and for each of those modes or sound settings, you can select whether you want bass boost on or do you want to have speech forward listening experience. I just want the bass boost on no matter which way I'm listening to it, and I'm very happy with the pass-through audio. It works really well. The only knock that I have on the pass-through audio, both in the 65T and the 75T, is that sometimes it's hard to tell where sound is coming from. So I took both the 65T and the 75T for runs along the trails here in Iowa, where I am staying for the Thanksgiving holiday at my in-laws house. And sometimes I could hear sounds and I would look up, and even though the sound sounded like it came from like the side of me, I would actually see that it was coming from like in front of me. So that was a little bit disorienting, but in terms of the safety aspect of it, I could definitely hear something that was around me, and even before I could see something that was around me. So that was a very positive feature. I just wish that there were a way for it to be a little bit more specific in terms of like where the sound is coming from. Now, in terms of the overall sound quality, though, I've listened to it both while running outside with my winter hat on. I've run with the 75T on the treadmill for 2 hours and change. And I also just listened to the 75T, comparing it to the 65T in just a quiet listening environment to get a little bit more of a discerning take on, is the sound better, which I've found previously hard to kind of even imagine. But in terms of my testing, I do think that the 75T is noticeably better. I wish there were a way that I could do kind of a blind taste or hearing test of the various earbuds, but you could tell that there's a difference in fit. So as soon as you put it in your ear, you would know which one you were using. But I definitely think the 75T sounds better. At low volumes, there's much better bass response, and so the sound feels much more full, even at very, very low, or like at the lowest volumes, and it can get very low, which I like, especially if you're listening to it with the pass-through off, and you have like the suction kind of effect of the earbuds. You're listening to it in a quiet environment. You can get a very good sound at a low volume, which is nice. But even at medium volumes or higher volumes, when you're listening to it with the pass-through either on or off, I do feel like that there is a substantially better bass response that you're getting from the 75T that again gives more of that fullness of sound that makes the 75T much more pleasant to me than even the 65T. Not that the 65T is a bad listening experience at all. Now in terms of battery life, I ran with the 75T 2 times this week, once for about an hour and 55 minutes out on the trails, and then 2 hours and 20 minutes on the treadmill. For the hour and 55 minutes I was out there, the earbuds gave me, they were at about 70% battery life left by the time I was done. The strange thing was that after the 2 hours and change on the treadmill today, I had 90% battery life left on these earbuds. And I wonder if it's because I spent a lot of time with the pass-through off, because I was at the gym, lots of ambient noise, really noisy. I was having a hard time focusing today. I think I'm starting to get a little bit fatigued from just being away from home, out of my normal routine, eating different things, drinking different things than I normally do. Whatever it was, I felt like I was trying to focus a lot more, turn the pass-through audio off, spent a lot of time with that off. And I was also listening to an audiobook versus music. On the longer run or the outdoor run, I was listening to a mix of audio, book, and music. And so I don't know if that also has an effect on it too, but I had only used 10% of the battery after 2 hours and 20 minutes on the treadmill. Now, in terms of claimed battery life, Jabra is claiming 7.5 hours of listening time out of these earbuds. I think that's probably about right. So epic battery life from these. A total of another 10 hours of listening time with the charging case, and then a 15-minute charge or top up will give you another 60 minutes of listening time if you get to the earbuds and you find that they're suddenly dead. Also, these earbuds are IP55 rated, so they're not quite waterproof. You're not going to submerge them in liquid, but I think IP55 is for like not a jet stream of water, but more than just splashes of water, I think, is what it can handle. So I think it'll definitely handle sweat and any kind of rain or storm that you might get caught out there in while running. So those should be good there. Now, in terms of the sweat test that I went through today, after 2 hours and 20 minutes, for me, when I do a sweat test, usually at about 45 minutes, I'm at my kind of sweatiest. After that, I don't know if it's because like most of my sweat is gone or what, things kind of like, I'm still sweaty and I'm still getting sweatier as I run. But like in terms of the sweat that's happening in my ear or on my head, that kind of maxes out at about 45 minutes. At that point for me today, the earbuds never fell out. So they stayed in, so they passed the test. But like I was mentioning earlier, the earbuds, they function with suction, and they kind of, you put them in your ear and you like twist a little bit to get a really snug fit. At the about 45-minute mark, the right earbud, and it's always for me the right earbud, I don't know if like anatomically something going on in my ear, or maybe I tilt my head a little bit when I run. Some sweat got into the ear, in between like the ear and the earbud, and I definitely felt like the suction had been released. Now the earbuds still stayed in, but I didn't have like a snug fit anymore. And at that point, I turned off the pass-through audio so that way I could kind of isolate myself a little bit more. But because of the way that sweat got in there, it had dislodged just enough that ambient noise was also getting into the earbud, even though I didn't want ambient noise to get into the earbud. So I was constantly kind of fidgeting with it, trying to get it, squished back into the ear. So not the best at sweat, but That's kind of what I was expecting from this earbud. It's similar to some of the results that I've had with the 65T, where it hasn't ever fallen out, but it also doesn't like excel at the sweat test either. You're definitely noticing when you're really, really sweaty that the earbuds are getting affected just a little bit. Now, I talked about the case a little bit in terms of you're gonna get about 10 more hours of listening time by charging in this case. There are some subtle differences in the case as well that I'm not sure that I like. Well, I like that it's now in the 75T USB-C charging versus micro USB in the 65T. In the 65T, the lid was really hard to open. You have to kind of like squeeze it and then open it. There was like a latch almost that was inside. With the 75T, they've gotten away with that. And it kind of opens, but it opens a little bit too easily. And one thing that did happen today is that as I was walking out to the car to head over to the gym, I dropped the earbuds and the case opened right up and one of the earbuds shot right out and actually rolled underneath my car. So I was like digging underneath and reaching underneath my car to try and retrieve the earbud. So that was a little bit annoying, something that, you know, not something I recommend is dropping your earbuds, but it happens. And so I didn't really like how easy it was to open this case. I kind of prefer that in the 65T, it's a little bit harder to open. Now, the last thing that I'll talk about is the buttons on these earbuds. Now, it's always been like a perennial problem or a consistent problem with, I guess probably the best way to put it, with the earbuds of this style, where how do you control them when they're this small? There's no cord that's connecting the earbuds. There's no place to put in like a control panel. So you have to figure out a way to control them. And the way that the 75T does it is there's one button on each side and each side's buttons do different things. The buttons work pretty well and they're very responsive. The only thing that I don't like about them is this style of button where I'm pushing something to make something happen. It's uncomfortable. I don't like pushing on the earbuds because it hurts my ear. While I'm sitting around, like when I'm commuting, it's not as big a deal. But when I'm trying to do this while I'm running, while I'm active, that's when it just hurts because I think you're running and you're like jostling and all this stuff is going on. That's when it tends to really bother me the most. And so still just ultimately a problem with these earbuds, but a problem with all earbuds of this type. These buttons I think are a lot easier to press than the previous generation's versions. So that's a big plus. So I'm not jamming them quite in as much as I was with the 65T. So I think it's an improvement, but still ultimately, I don't know how much better they can make it. I don't have any ideas how to solve the problem other than to make it better integrated with your voice assistant, but not everyone wants that. I'm not even sure I want that. Although in the wintertime when I have gloves on and everything's underneath hats and layers, I tend to resort to using the voice assistant a little bit more. But I just don't know how to fix that problem, but pushing the buttons is a painful experience for me. Now, I will say though that compared to the 65T, the buttons, I think, I don't know if it's an improvement or not. I guess it's gonna be really a personal preference. The 65T had 3 buttons that you could press. On the left-hand side, there was actually 2 buttons, one on the front of the earbud and one on the back. And they were always hard for me to kind of navigate and figure out. And then there was one button on the right-hand side. This year, hopefully out of the sake of simplicity, they just did one on each side, and that's a little bit easier for me to figure out and live with. The thing that I don't like about the way that the buttons are this time is that to increase or decrease volume, you have to long press the earbud. And that's kind of like the worst way for me to be able to use something like volume control, is because you know, I don't know if I just want to increase the volume a little bit. I don't know if I've done too long of a press or too short of a press. And so I find myself like, okay, increase volume. Oh, that was too much. Is that the minimum increase that I can do, or can I lower it just a little bit? And so I find myself like fiddling around with the volume a lot when I have a long press as a volume increase option, because I feel like it takes a long time to register and then all of a sudden the volume increases and I have a hard time controlling it. So not my favorite way of interacting with these earbuds. I wish the long presses were mapped to something else. I don't think there's a way that you can change the way that the buttons are mapped. So that's a little bit frustrating about these earbuds as well, especially at this price point. You can customize sound, you can customize when you're hearing pass-through audio or not, but you can't change the way the buttons are mapped. So that seems like a little bit of a letdown, a little bit of a strange decision there, but I can understand that, you got to make some decisions when you're dealing with an interface that's as limited as true wireless earbuds, where you're spending most of your time concerned about sound quality, battery life, and then just not falling out. So just kind of nitpicking at this point, because these are absolutely excellent earbuds. Easily one of the best earbuds that I've run in this year, probably one of the best earbuds I've ever run in. So absolutely loving these. Very excited to spend a lot more time in these earbuds. The last thing I'll talk about is which one should you get. Now, if it's a head-to-head comparison on the earbuds themselves, obviously for me the answer is the 75T. Very easy to answer that question. But the 75T just came out, so they're at full retail price. And now, especially with the holidays or in Black Friday deals, you get the 65T for just $100. And at $100, that's an absolute steal all day. And I think that it's really hard for me to justify getting up to the 75T's price point for how good the 65T is at $100. So those are my thoughts on the Jabra Elite 75T versus the Jabra Elite 65T. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions. I'd love to talk to you guys more about it down there. Before I go, I'm gonna talk about a new charity runner for this week. This week, it's Tommy Hackett, who just ran the Seattle Marathon, and he's raising money for the Pat Tillman Foundation. I was very happy to donate $70 to Tommy's fundraising efforts. He's actually been a charity runner before, and he always runs spotlighting and raising money for military-based charities. So very happy to spotlight and support Tommy again. And if you want to learn more about Tommy Hackett's fundraising efforts, I'll post a link in the description down below. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video, and I will see you tomorrow.
Yo, what's going on?